Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Work It podcast, where EQ meets IQ, training workplace success. Visit workitcareers.com for more information on how you can discover and awaken your true career path. I'm Lori, your host, and today marks the 10th podcast. And, today we're taking on a subject that, impacts a lot of people out there in America. And I wanted to share with you my experiences with this subject of helping people remove the labels, and most of them are medical labels that are put on students that eventually turn into adults. So I wanted to share with you my thoughts on that. And obviously it's a sensitive subject, but I'm hoping to do it in a way where it awakens so many of us out there. So, medical diagnosis, with technology advances over the last 20 years, students today are more likely to be diagnosed with something special. Therefore, a label being created for our students out there. And most households are running into this. Now, for those that are very scientific, it's something new to study, or is it something new to worry about? Two different perspectives. So, I wanted to really give you my insight as to how I see it impacting career plans, dreams, aspirations, and eventually, there are people's abilities to make a living. So we know that many children out there have repeatedly gone to doctors, and as anyone can imagine, there's so many tests out there that are available. When your child is not doing well in school, it leads to maybe a pediatrician visit, which may lead to further testing, and then eventually being either put on medication or being put into special education, which so many students, probably more today than ever, have been put into a special education plan, which leads to increased meetings with teachers. And yeah, there are some children that absolutely need a little bit of special attention, but we all know that schools today are kind of cookie cutter. So the learning style is fact based in most cases. There are some hands-on classes, but many of them have been dwindled down. So it leaves every child kind of learning the same way. And we all know that everyone learns differently. So when your child is not learning the same way their friends are learning, or somebody that you admire is learning, you want to try to fix that because you feel that it's wrong. I have news for you. It's not wrong. Everyone learns differently. And when I get your child as part of a career planning session, this is what I encounter. So, first thing is, a child often comes in with excuses. Not excuses as to why they're not going to school or why they're not doing their chores at home, but excuses as to why they can't go into a career that they've always dreamed of. So, how I view it is self-imposed restrictions. Now, those restrictions are in the form of labeling, and it stems from many years. Now, most of my students are between the ages of, let's say, 13 and 18 years old. Those labels were put on these students well before the age of 13. So when you put a label or a diagnosis, and those diagnoses could be as simple as learning disability, speech impediment, dyslexia, ADHD, PTSD, Tourette's, could be many, many, many things. And obviously, there's just so many more that are being uncovered, different syndromes. So, when you put that word into this child's vocabulary and the parent's vocabulary, it creates a stop sign subconsciously. So, you are, in fact, creating this life for a child that sees restrictions. You're not doing it on purpose. And the medical industry is not thinking that they're making that huge of an impact on someone's future. But I want to bring awareness to this. So I work with all kinds of students. I work with straight A students. I work with students that are struggling academically. I work with private school students. I work with inner city students. It doesn't matter. There are children out there, many, that have these labels. And I find it, I guess, a challenge, interesting. And I want to see that these children start to plan their life beyond those labels. So when I talk about ripping the labels off at, a certain point in their life, because special education means absolutely nothing when you go to get your first job. Your employer does not give a hoot as to whether or not you were in special education classes. So I need for students and parents to understand that special education needs to be voided out of their vocabulary. It doesn't matter. Special education, in my opinion, means that you were just not learning at the same level or the same way as the most students in the school. Everyone learns differently. ADHD, it's one that's a hot button for me because a lot of visionaries like myself are somewhat put into that ADHD level. They're not able to focus, they're drifting off, they're thinking about other things. That's what visionaries do, people. That's what they do. They think about other things. They think about things that have not been created yet. So, in a school environment, a fact based environment, these are studies of things that have already been created, already been documented. So, when you take a visionary who's not paying attention, and you bring them to a pediatrician, the first thing they're going to do is try to medicate. Now, there are some children that may have it so extreme that they're not able to keep themselves safe, maybe when they're younger. It's so important to bring ADHD children or visionary children to people that are similar minded. And there's not a lot of visionaries out there, but there are. So making sure that you bring people, your children, to meet like-minded people. And yeah, you may not understand them that so well, but they do. So look for the eyes to widen up, and those are the people that your children will get enthused about, remain calm about, and continue to envision whatever it is that they want to envision for themselves in the future. So, touching on that, we talk about drug addiction. Well, there's a lot of students that are so-called recovering or, going in and out of drug rehab centers. That's a label. That's a huge label. And there's a lot of students out there with that label. What causes drug addiction? They could have the best upbringing, all the support that they need. There's a lot of different answers to that, but something has caused them to want to experience a feeling that they just don't get in their surroundings. So when I work with students that may have some drug addiction, we talk about the future. In a lot of rehab situations, they talk about the past. And a lot of therapy sessions, it's all about the past. So taking a student from what they have experienced or what their label has been and taking them to new levels in their life is what I do. I work with them to understand where they are today is very, very short. Where they're going tomorrow is where they need to put their focus on. So, my experience with drug addicts and any kind of, labeled student has been positive, and it's about bringing them to the future, letting them bring that dream that they once had back to the forefront and making a plan around it. Now, making a plan around a student that's viewed or has viewed themselves as restricted is the challenge. And it's a good challenge, whether it's a physical disability, a speech impediment. And I just want to touch on speech impediment for a bit because, I laugh. I work with students that have English as a second language, Do you view that as a speech impediment? I think we all know older individuals that have come to this country, and their voices have a dialect, an accent that they've never been labeled as a speech impediment individual. So I mean, why are we labeling a child at 4 or 5 years old that may not be speaking as clearly as another student as having a speech impediment, and that carries on with them to age 16? Now I'm seeing, when talking to these students with speech impediments, I don't hear it, but yet the students are saying, I have a speech impediment, I'm sorry if you don't understand me. I completely understand them. So I'm going to throw something out at you. I have students with speech impediments, ADHD, learning disabilities, dyslexia, drug addiction, Tourette's. It doesn't matter what they have. But what I'm seeing is the common denominator amongst all students that come to me is their inability to spell. And these are straight A students. These are private school students. It does not matter. The common theme that I'm seeing is that every student in America could have a learning disability, and that's called spelling, but they're not classified as that. So I want to bring that out and just hopefully wake up a lot of people out there that these labels are something that I will spend the rest of my life removing from kids and adults, because I'm getting adults that carry on that same label, and letting them live the life and purpose that they were supposed to be living. I have a 55-year-old student who immediately claimed when I met him that he wanted more in his life, that he was a special ed student back in his day. Obviously not diagnosed with anything, because back then they just gave you a little bit special learning. Today, 3 years after I met him, this man who put who lived with a restriction and decided one day that he did not want to live with that restriction anymore. It was like an awakening, but he's 55 years old. And today he is living life with such purpose. It's incredible. Now, he did have a stuttering, so I guess a speech impediment, right? And I have to say, in 3 years that I've known him, that speech impediment that once existed is not as noticeable, not nearly as noticeable as it once was. So when you keep repeating to yourself that I have whatever, then it becomes a belief system, part of your belief system, and that's how you behave. That's food for thought. I've observed it for many years, and I am a true believer of that. What you say is what you are. So why not try saying something different? Say what it is that you want to be. Prepare yourself for your purpose. Take action for your purpose. In one of my very first podcasts, we interviewed a young lady who went to school, diagnosed as dyslexic, and today she is phenomenal at her job of dental hygiene. So she studied just like all the others, but it took her a little bit longer. She admitted that, but she never gave up. If we are all living in a manner in which everyone has to study the same things the same way, then for those people that are not fact-based learners, they have to adjust their style of learning, which is painful. It's painful for someone who does not learn the same way as a fact-based learner to go through 12 years of schooling, learning like what they call the majority of the students out there. So being able to have teachers out there that adjust their teaching style to a student's individual learning style is going to be a godsend. And we're going to get to that point one day. So, if I can just maybe end my rant, I want to let parents and students out there, and administrators of schools know that my purpose in life is to identify students' learning styles, allow them to pick the subjects that are going to feed those learning styles, and allowing them to identify their purpose in life, what the problem is in the world that they would like to fix, and making a plan to do just that. So there is no greater satisfaction for me than to take these excuses, self-imposed restrictions that were once imposed inadvertently by a medical professional, supported by parents, and reinforced and replayed in children's minds for decades. I want to remove these labels so that these individuals do not go into adulthood still under the same old belief system and having the words speech impediment, ADHD, learning disability, special education, drug addiction, etc., repeating in their minds so that they do not accomplish their purpose. So I thank you all for listening. I hope that this, helps many parents out there understand the impact that they have on their children. It's something that's fixable now, and obviously if I was to receive your student, I would certainly try to fix it then. But it's important that you all understand what I see and what I believe, and and making sure that these labels do not become a part of their name that you gave them at birth. And right now, based on what I'm seeing, those labels are actually coming in front of the name that you gave your child at birth. And that's not good. So, to end this on a positive, I want to thank everyone for listening. I want to let you know that many of the students that I've had are working past those labels, and it is fixable. And I ask that you share this podcast with so many of your friends, because I need to spread that inspiration nationwide, especially in the US. I think the US has more of the issue than the rest of the world. But, this I'm here to help. So I look forward to talking with you again next week and bringing on some wonderful guests that maybe will expand on this subject in the future from their viewpoints. But I just wanted to kind of give my viewpoint by myself right now, because it's something that's near and dear to my heart and very, very much purposeful for me. So I thank you all for listening in, and please catch us anytime on the website at workitcareers.com for all the past podcasts to listen in on and other valuable information regarding Work It. So thank you very much.